Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Esther.
And on the roll call, Councilman Troy.
Present.
Councilman Divney.
Here.
Councilman Valentine.
Here.
Councilman Fatari.
Here.
Supervisor Stewart.
Here. Thank you very much. So tonight is a regular town board meeting. Most of the items on the agenda have been workshopped before. There's a couple of new things. And we have a few announcements and presentations, and of course our public comment period where we invite folks to address the board on any issue on the agenda or not on the agenda. Just for announcements, coming up next week on December 5th, there'll be a public hearing related to performance standards for odor, particulate matter, and opacity or smoke. And we've been doing some work on amendments to the town code related to that, and the public hearing will be about those proposals and for discussion from the community. Also, on the December 19th, there'll be a public hearing having to do with the regulation of devices and the public rights of way and easements. So there's a couple of public hearings coming up, and tonight we will be interrupted before too long and quite happily by the arrival or representatives of the soccer team of the Pearl River High School Ladies Pirates varsity soccer team, who we want to honor for their amazing accomplishments in the soccer competition.
Andy, one other announcement is that the CSEA has ratified the contract that we negotiated over the last year, and that's going to be on the workshop agenda next Tuesday.
Right, they voted on it, and now it's the town board's turn, essentially.
Here's my request to you. I thought the next meeting after that was the 12th.
It's the 19th, I think.
It's the 19th, but I can't be there on the 19th. What I'd ask is that we do that, have the vote next week, next Tuesday, on the CSEA contract.
During the workshop meeting.
Yeah.
My only concern is that we give people a chance to see things before we vote on them. So maybe,
Well,
I want to accommodate. I know you have something important you got to do on the 19th.
You have something on the film tonight
Yeah.
that's being voted on that was not in the workshop.
I don't want to debate you on it,
No,
Dennis,
well,
but there's
my
a difference between
point
setting
is-
a public hearing and voting
Andy,
on a huge contract.
My point is, we've done it before.
Absolutely.
I'm asking you to do it next week.
And the town board certainly has the latitude to put agenda items on any town board agenda. So I
Well,
think everybody.
let me ask, maybe I'm out here by myself. It's a thing, would you support, or the rest of you support, voting on that next Tuesday? Jerry?
Yes, I can. Maybe we can put it out on the website, so anybody interested could look at the contract on the website.
There's other ways of distributing it, so.
Okay.
So why don't we take a look at that? I don't know if there's strong opinions here. As I know that generally we try to workshop important items. Dennis is asking for accommodation. You know, it's basically, I'll make sure the resolutions are written. If the town board wants to vote on Tuesday, then.
The only
we'll do that.
concern is that the public get a chance to review it and then speak. So are we going to have public comment at a workshop?
On that item, you're gonna.
Maybe on that one item?
On that item.
Well, that's one of the reasons, like, you have other announcements of public hearings that are coming up. To me, you don't even have it down as an announcement, which I think is fairly important to the town.
The CSEA contract.
Yes.
It is important. And usually when things are on a workshop agenda, it functions as an announcement. But what you're suggesting is that we vote on something before it's been announced or been on a workshop agenda.
Well, you purposely didn't put it in the announcements here tonight.
Well, I never put things that are just going to come up for a vote. Otherwise, I'd be announcing the entire next week's agenda on the top of this week's. It wouldn't make sense.
Never is such a strong word there, Andy.
I try to do things right. If the town board wants to vote next week and hold a public hearing, or at least public comment on the CSEA contract, I will certainly play along with that. I have no particular desire to oppose it. It just isn't probably the ideal situation. It might involve a little logistics that we're not used to. But anyway, that was the announcement about the soccer folks. They are here. Why don't we bring them in?
There's a lot of them.
Tom, were you going to introduce them?
We could,
Yeah, maybe all the town board will go
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Maybe the coach can call them up and we'll show.
Say that again, Paul?
yeah, the coach can, let the coach give these out.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll go
absolutely.
down and we'll shake their hands.
Tim Peabody.
If we could invite Coach Peabody to the podium, the microphone there, and thank you for coming tonight and bringing the team. It gives us great joy to recognize the accomplishments of the girls soccer team, and we often, folks who come to meetings frequently know that we often take a little time to celebrate an accomplishment in the community right at the beginning of our meeting. And this is certainly something that deserves celebration. So I would just like to invite you on behalf of the board just to talk a little bit about your team's accomplishments. And I know Councilman Divany has certificates of recognition to hand out. Maybe Mr. Knight here from Rockland County Times would like to take a picture when you're wrapping up. So go ahead, sir.
Well, we had one of those magical seasons that I believe you dream about, and really not one of those things that you think about all the time. You just start working in August, or actually in our case it was in late June, towards being the best team that we could possibly be. We have a diverse group, 8th grader through senior in high school. We have 27 girls on the team. There's a lot of hours that you spend together. You become a family in many respects, because whether it's 7 o'clock in the morning practices, which we have a large number of, or long bus rides or pasta parties that the girls have at parents' houses, a lot goes into it, a lot more than you might imagine. I'm sure that you all have kids and you've raised kids, so you probably realize when you have 20 some odd girls over for a pasta dinner, it's not an easy affair. There are a lot of eaters in the group, and you don't quite realize it. So
Sounds
I
like
owe
fun.
a lot of thanks to the parents who are so supportive of these young ladies, who have spent years and hours traveling with them from game to game. In our case, on the high school level, it's across the bridge, traveling upstate. But it's because they love what they do, I believe, and they love being together, and there's nothing quite like it. Winning is really special, and being together is actually more special.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that description.
Do you want to go down and we'll give the coach?
Well, this is coach. No, but we have these are the coaches.
Yeah, so why don't you do the coaches and then give them your badge?
All right, you wanna go down?
Yeah, I've just asked.
Come on.
All right. Well, all right, fine. We are, as a group, going to present your certificates to you.
Well, we got the first one to Tim Peabody, who coached me back in the day, way back when, with Bob Walkley. So I think it's a great accomplishment. I mean, I played in high school, I played in college, I know what it takes, but we never had the success you guys did. I mean, I think it's amazing. Like I'll sit down with like Tom Doherty, the ex-AD, about like all-time greats. You guys are on the list right now. State champions, you know, you'll be getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's not if, it's when. And I compliment the parents. I see some guys that I used to play with, Henry right there. It takes so much dedication, and the parents have to sacrifice so much. You know, tournaments in the summer, going down to Teaneck, going to the Waldwick, going all over, you know, and you guys won, but you guys did too. And I appreciate all the effort you guys put into it. And I think it's a great day that you guys came out as champions. I see some girls who I'd be playing soccer with them in LBI, Kate and Kylie McNally 5 years ago. So this is a great accomplishment. So we got Tim Peabody. We're going to give you an award. And but I don't want to mutilate any names, so I'm going to let Tim announce the names. So we.
All right. My assistant coach, Lynn Asterico, could not be here. She's actually coaching basketball, so she's a little exhausted, so she's not here. So I will just take this for you here. And Shannon Miziak is a chemistry teacher who works triple time with that, so she's not here. And I will get to the girls. Are you going to hand it?
Yeah, we'll hold.
Okay. Our first is senior captain Catherine Karstensen. Sophomore Madison Donnelly. Sophomore Allison Ritchie. Senior Deirdre Cowie. Junior Kerry Tyre. Oh, I'm asked to point out that Mr. Tyre, a county legislator, is here to support his daughter. Senior Alexis Meredith. Junior Sarah Donovan. Sophomore Kate McNally. Junior Julia Pizzuto. Junior Alyssa Portington, who's one of our captains. Junior Emily Andriello. Junior Tara Guilfoyle. Eighth grader Maeve Woods. Oh, okay. So she'll get back in line and come back. This is Megan Woods, Maeve's sister. Lots of homework in the Woods house. Senior, by far our funniest member, Kaylee Miedrich. Junior Sarah Lindquist. Junior Caitlin Finucane. Senior Kylie Gronkowski. Senior Captain Megan Woods. She's going to say she got bonus points for putting up with her sister. Junior Kelly Buchan. Senior Kaylee Ritchie. Senior Captain Kate Ferrick. Freshman Alyssa Smith. Sophomore Ella Sirakovsky. Freshman Catherine Del Grasso. Freshman Kylie McNally. Junior Ashley Riley. Freshman Catherine Capone. And thank you so much for the town of Orangetown allowing us to use the Orangetown fields. For 2 weeks, we got to utilize the fields that are put in down on Orangeburg Road to prepare for the playoffs, and due to the fact that all playoff games are played on turf and Pearl River has grass, we were fortunate to be able to practice each day on turf, and it really does make a difference in terms of preparation and getting the girls ready to play in big games. So we thank you for having us. It was truly an honor, and we hope you have a great evening.
Congratulations, lady. So imagine being an 8th grader and winning the championship.
Yeah.
Usual. I think they're just leaving.
These young women. And the only reason I'm standing with you is to remind you there are women in government. It's an important role. But whatever role you choose in this life, you've already proven that you're leaders. But remember, as you support one another, you thank your families have produced wonderful women, but you have produced one another, and you have helped one another. So you are so lucky to be together, support one another for the rest of your life. And remember, support women.
I have respect for the older generation.
All right, I thank you. Kristen. You're very welcome, sweetheart. That was great. Thank you.
Congratulations, girls. Testing, testing.
Is the Mutual Group architecture firm here yet? Larry Lane, you out there somewhere? Strange. Okay. Were they supposed to be here? Right around 7:30, okay. We have one other presentation about an architectural report about Town Hall, but given that the consultant is running a bit late, yeah, they're supposed to be here more or less at the beginning of the meeting. Why don't we start our public comment period, and we'll take a break when the architecture folks get here so that they can do their presentation. So with that, I'll make a motion to open our public comment period. Do I have a second? From Jerry Batari. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. We do have some folks who signed in. And let's see, when is that public hearing? All right, yeah. And we also have a public hearing about the cell tower thing. So we'll get to that as well.
That starts at 8:10, so you got 10 minutes.
The first person to sign in for public comment is Esther Baitler. Esther, thanks for helping us with the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. And don't forget about the 3-minute rule.
Well, I'm waiting for a plaque from all of you on the board. Good evening,
Touché.
Supervisor Stewart and town board members, including John Edwards. Hi, my name is Esther Baitler, and I'm a consumer who lives at the Kathy Lukens Independent Living Center, right in Spark Hill. How wonderful. Tonight I'm here to address you, Supervisor Stewart, about your action toward Charlotte Madison.
Mm-hmm.
It was totally inappropriate. And I really think that everybody needs to be nice to everybody. Not on a bad day, but on all good days. And I think that Charlotte deserves a round of apologies. Mm-hmm. She does a great job. Our people go to her to get tickets for the regular tour buses. She's always on the ball about it. She doesn't deserve to be treated in a disrespectful way. Christmas is coming. And one of the things that Dennis, Troy, and people from the Venture Board have always taught me, that everybody needs to be nice and be caring to everybody. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I sit home watching you on the town board meetings, and it's just unreal. I mean, your actions were absolutely out of order. She's old enough to be your mother and grandmother.
It's probably true.
I mean, I really think she deserves a sincere apology. Also, Andy, you wrote in the Journal News a comment about me and against me.
I did not do
I
that.
struggle with the 3-minute buzzer. I don't struggle. Every time I'm here, I have said very clear to all of you, the people deserve to speak for 10 minutes on issues that matter to them. So for you to say I struggle, no way. I really think that, you know, you need to realize that without me, there wouldn't be town board meetings at all. Because I helped to run Venture. And I really think that it's time for you not to say that I struggle with it. I think you need to understand, Andy, that I care about people who come to speak at the public portion meetings.
Thank you, Esther.
Now, number 2.
Esther?
Aloof Plastics is a mess. The odors are far from gone. It is toxic. There was a nail polish company that had a fire in New Windsor. Aloof should not be there. It's awful. People are smelling this stuff. It's not right. My sister lives in Blaville. and she talks to people. And it's not appropriate. I really think Jane Slavin should get a handle on it, giving them summonses and violations.
I think we're all together on that one, Esther.
I think it's time that everybody get a handle on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather see venture community residences in that LIO zone, but not aloof. You gotta be kidding me. It was on Channel 12 tonight. What's it gonna take for you people to get them closed?
We will be talking about that later tonight, Esther, and I know you'll be here for the whole meeting, so there'll be more information in a report on exactly that topic.
I just
Thank you for
wanna
bringing it up.
bring Jim Dean up, please. I would like to.
Esther,
I would
Esther,
like to thank Jim and Stefan
we all thank
for
Jim
the
and Stefan.
sidewalks that says Esther's Way. It's not in gold yet, but it will happen.
Great. All right.
I also want to thank Dennis Troy and all of you that came to my celebration. And I know that Kathy Lukens is looking down upon me because of this wonderful celebration. I really think that the board should have given me a certificate beside the wonderful highway department. I deserve
All right.
it. And for Dennis Troy putting up with me all these years. As
Thank
he
you,
said,
Esther.
Esther, you'll get your sidewalks and you'll get your street lights. Dennis, I have to tell you that Vicki is just tremendous. She put us
Yep.
on the priority list to get the new street lights because the board never got the parts for the fixtures for the LED street lights, and I can tell you I spoke with Howard.
Thank you so much, Esther. Without you, I don't think anything would happen around here. We appreciate all your work.
Andy,
I would like to invite
Andy?
Steve DeSalvio. Now, Esther, thank you very much.
thank you to Dennis as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. DeSalvio.
Yeah, it's just tough to follow.
Tough act to follow.
I'll try and be nice. Steve Del Savio, 262 Trenton Place in Orangeburg, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. I've owned this property for 35 years, bordering an LIO zone, which was basically a simple corporate park when I moved in. My property has been substantially devalued by recent decisions of the planning and zoning boards. I always thought we should have trust in our government to protect our concerns and follow the law. I've gone to several board meetings and have found that this is not the case, and in fact have been ignored and residents have been ignored and disrespected. I'll give examples later. I filed an Article 78 against the town, which has been quite an expense to me because I feel town government hasn't abided by the law and I must protect my rights. The LIO zones, specifically on Ramland Road and Corporate Drive off Blaisdell Road, have become industrial sites. Again, they are LIO zones, not LI zones, and our boards don't seem to know the difference. There are several warehouses. By the way, anybody go to the Clarence warehouse sale? That big sign you saw all over, warehouse. Nowhere do I see in an LIO zone on any tables, any special permits, any conditional permits, that warehouses are allowed in LIO zones. They're all over the place. And the zoning board and planning board keep giving them approvals to go further and further. Not only that, then they give them variances. They get height variances. They're not even supposed to be there, and they're getting height variances. They're getting outdoor loading docks, and the town refuses to see the cumulative adverse effects of all these approvals. The department has incorrectly, the building department, has incorrectly allowed these applications to even reach the planning board. I can only hope that our new director will look into this. I just wanted to give you some examples of what went on. At the planning board, I've never heard well, I did hear, a planning board chairman saying that we should not have purchased property abutting an LIO zone. How can he say that? How can he say that? When I moved here, my answer to him is when I moved here, I read the code, and I knew what could be done behind me and what can't be done. If anything, the planning board and zoning boards should read what our code is, and maybe they, enforce it and, protect all the residents here. Before my time runs out, at the planning board meeting, I brought up the issue that the zoning board minutes hadn't been approved yet. I was ignored. I brought up the issue that they probably need a use variance to build in that area. I was ignored. Then I asked the planning board, let's assume I'm okay with their variances and everything. You, the planning board, can now decide. You have jurisdiction on the rear yard. So I said, please ask Subaru to eliminate the rear parking so I can have an additional rear parking and a rear drive, so I can have an additional 60 feet of buffer from my house. I was ignored, completely ignored. Somebody on the planning board mumbled, it's a fire code. I don't think that's true. I mean, I thought maybe it would be true, but if it is true, I want the code enforcer to go back and count 13 buildings in those two parks that I saw that don't have any kind of fire road behind them for fire code. So they just play along. And then after I said that, I said, okay, maybe they need the fire code, maybe they need a road. What about the parking? Not even a discussion, not even a question to Subaru, can you get rid of that parking for the town? So just, there's other things. I'm over my time.
Thanks. Well,
In
it'd be
conclusion,
great if you could, because you can't say everything in 3 minutes, if you could provide a document or copy of your comments or email that would describe that.
All right, I'm just saying, had our boards, in conclusion, had the boards followed the codes and laws with competence, it would be completely unnecessary for a resident such as myself to go to the time and expense, and it's not cheap, and the expense of defending my property while filing an Article 78. I'm shocked that our town government has gotten to this point. Thank you.
Liz Dudley.
Liz Dudley, Orangeburg. I actually have a statement that we had about 258 people sign.
Mm-hmm.
It might take me 1 extra minute to read it.
Read fast.
I'm asking for pre-approval.
Thank you.
Okay. Clean Air for Orangetown is continuing with our advocacy for cleaner air. Our concerns over air quality and odors cannot be ignored. The town board must take further action to address the ongoing pollution in our community. Residents have been advocating for ambient air testing in the area around Aloof Plastics, located on Route 303 in Glenshaw Street in Orangeburg, for over a year. It's actually going to be going on 2. In August 2017, the town of Orangetown hired TRC Solutions to conduct ambient air testing in the vicinity of Aloof Plastics. Over the years, a factory has been cited with air pollution control law violations by the New York Department of Environmental Conservation, has had fires, explosions, and accidents resulting in worker injuries. The Phase 1 report was released in October 2017, and the report states, results from the VOC samples collected during Phase 1 of this monitoring program indicate 4 compounds that exceed their corresponding levels. The New York State DEC updates the SGCs and the AGCs every 3 years and presents them in concentrations for acrolein, benzene, carbon tetrachloride, and hexachloridine. Sorry about that one. That one's a really long one. Exceeds either the SGC or the AGC in 1 or more of the samples. After receiving these concerning air quality results, the town of Orangetown hired TRC toxicologist Karen Ventrano, PhD, to write a health assessment. According to the TRC website, her past clients have included Chevron, ExxonMobil, General Electric, PG&E, and CRN Railway Company. This report states that the TRC does not believe that exposure to these measured concentrations would result in negative health effects. A team of the local physicians and scientists is challenging this assessment in part because the toxicologist is only considering short-term guidelines in her assessment. If these concentrations are representative of our daily air quality through most of the year, because it is a 24-hour operation 6 days a week, these toxins might cause adverse health effects to residents who are exposed for months and years of their lives. Complaints to the town and county of noxious odors have been going for years. Clean Air for Orangetown believes that the results of the ambient air testing must not be dismissed by our elected officials. Both the odor and the air quality must be studied. Although they are related, the air quality and the odor must be examined independently. Okay, I only have this one last page, and it's a little bit less.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. The following concerned residents statement has been signed by 258 residents, and it follows. We, the residents of Orangetown, believe the results from the 3 24-hour tests and the community air canister tests indicate a need for further ambient air testing. We agree with TRC Solutions' suggestions of additional air sampling as mentioned in their October 2017 report, that TRC suggests adding sampling for aldehydes in accordance with the US EPA method TO-11. Number 2, we request that the annual guideline concentrations, AGC, be used as a reference because the residents and students have been and continue to be exposed to this air over many months and years. Number 3, we request that the odors be further investigated as separate from the air toxins present. The odors are a separate and distinct issue which adversely affects our quality of life. The continuance of the noxious odors is an ongoing violation of Orangetown Code on Odors 4.182 and 4.11. Residents have been complaining about the odors from this factory for over a decade. And number 4, we believe that the air sampling in our community should continue to be conducted independently from the odor events. We also request that comprehensive soil and analysis around the surrounding neighborhoods commence as soon as possible. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, benzene vapor is heavier than air and may sink into low-lying areas. The result of the 24-hour canisters tests indicate that toxins are present in the air, whether there is odor present or not. Therefore, odor should not be the only indicator of air pollution in this area. I just want to close with, we live down the street from it, and we are smelling it on a daily occurrence. It has not gone any better, and I was really disappointed to see that after the holy grail of the fixes going in, that we did not do a walkthrough of this, huge warehouse to make sure that the fans were closed down and there were not holes in the building. That's something that should fall onto the town. The DEC does their part. The town should be working with them, combining the efforts to bring them under, to make this town not have to deal with all the odors. I personally believe that you should start taking extruders away. When they get to a point that you don't smell them, then that's their operating capacity. They have reached it, they've gone over, and it's causing all these problems. Thank you.
Mr. Jensen.
Heather Hurley.
Good evening, Town Board. Heather Hurley, Pearl River. I hate to go from something so celebratory with the girls' soccer team to something so toxic, but I find it still incomprehensible to me why a seemingly misleading and incomplete published statement by Councilman Divney regarding certain emissions from this facility remains on his website. My first request for him to retract his published statement from October 24th was made in the November 1st issue of the Our Town newspaper. A town-wide campaign mailer was sent out to residents after my initial request with both Councilman Divney's and Councilman Troy's names on it, again with omissions about elevated levels of toxins in the air sampling results around the Aloof Plastics neighborhood. This, in my opinion, is inexcusable and irresponsible for elected officials to continue to spread misleading and incomplete information to the public at large who may not follow this issue closely. It is a gross deficiency in the role of elected officials, and it appears to me that it was used solely for political gain, which in turn proves more reprehensible to me. I am once again requesting that Councilman Divney retract his statement from October 24th and I request that the current members of the entire town board and Supervisor-elect Chris Day to encourage him to retract and revise this statement. It would be remiss if they didn't, and if they didn't advocate for the dissemination of complete and accurate information to be distributed to the community, especially now, given the second set of recent comments by TRC received on November 10th stating that levels of certain chemical concentrations again exceed the New York State DEC threshold level guidelines. After reading the town memo dated November 22nd, I was shocked to read that some of the information provided to the community that detailed some of the next steps that the town would take, considering many of these steps are what members of Clean Air for Orangetown suggested to the supervisor and Councilman Divney at that table in this very room on January 30th, 2017. This is negligent, in my opinion, in waiting this long to pursue using an olfactometer. The residents have been advocating for this and presented you with information on this equipment, pricing, and where to purchase it nearly 10 months ago. This is a slap in the face to the community that you are now releasing a memo with this kind of information. We informed the town of an odor expert. Members of Clean Air for Orangetown hired one with our own money from Canada, and a professional analysis was submitted to the New York State DEC and the town in early July 2017 with a professional analysis of odor mitigation equipment, and it was ignored. With all the talk of money being spent on more consultants, why is the town requesting that Corlapara Engineering, a company specifically hired by Aloof Plastics, to be the one to conduct a site inspection of Aloof Plastics? Why isn't the town hiring an independent engineering firm to conduct the inspection? This course of action in pursuing Corlapara shows a total disregard to an independent process. The public has been showing up for almost 2 years, though these smells have been going on for much longer. We've let the process play out, as we were told to do nearly 2 years ago, only to have burning plastic noxious odors continue to invade their neighborhoods and schools with little to non-existent verification and enforcement. It is my hope that the community continues to remain engaged and involved in this issue and know that their fellow community members will continue showing up and speaking out until this issue is completely resolved.
Allison Sullivan, you still here?
Hello. Good evening. Allison Sullivan, Blauvelt, New York. I just wanted to read you something from Aloof's website, the Aloof community. They give a lot of information on there, a lot of misinformation on there, but I'm just going to read one sentence that kind of sums it up. Further town, New York State DEC and EPA testing proves Aloof Plastics is not the source of VOCs or odors in Orangetown. This is an outright lie. And I want to know what each of your opinions is on that. I sent an email a week ago asking each of you about this, and I got no response. We have emails and documentation proving noxious odors are coming from Aloof, and I feel it is irresponsible for the town board to not address this. The goal is to get rid of the noxious plastic odors that Aloof is putting out and what they say other companies are putting out. I really don't care where it's coming from. I think it's the town's job to figure that out and stop it. They're spewing odors into our neighborhood, to my neighborhood and others' neighborhoods, damaging my property values and my enjoyment of my home, giving me anxiety on the possible adverse long-term health effects this could be exposing to my family. You will never get results unless Aloof is held accountable, and you have failed to do that. You've set the precedent for the manufacturers in this area and have allowed the residents' rights to take a back seat. I'm discouraged and I'm disappointed because I feel I've been strung along. I've done everything the town has asked me to do. I've taken air samples, I've given out air samples, I've chased the odors, I've tried to determine where they come from with hopes but nothing seems to help. All you have done is stall with hopes this would disappear. You have failed to verify and document where the odors are coming from, even though the town code states you have the right to do so. So here we are, 22 months later. We are no better off than where we started. What are you going to do? That's it.
Mike Smith.
Mike Smith, 65 A Street, Blauvelt. I just wanted to say a couple things. I'm encouraged by the progress that the DEC has made with Aloof in installing the new systems, and I'm also encouraged by the town's efforts to do some testing on their own. That was, all positive stuff. It's obviously a little too early to be able to tell how effective the installation is going to be. It depends a lot on weather, wind direction, their manufacturing process, all that. So we'll see over time. But thanks for backing the efforts of the DEC to get that taken care of, and thanks for the testing. I do want to say, though, that there's still some concerning things going on here in the town. It's my understanding, that Avery Dennison is also a polluter and a contributor to the fragrances or odors around here. And I find it a little disconcerting that the town wouldn't have made greater efforts to work with those two issues, Aloof and Avery, in parallel with one another. And it's a little disconcerting as well to hear some of the statements about how the town can't really determine where the odor is coming from. You've got the power to do that. You certainly have the ability and the will of the people to back you in that regard. Yet you're legally able to investigate and inspect those facilities. So it's really, disappointing, somewhat inexcusable to say at this point that you can't isolate those smells. You get reports of something going on, send a personnel to the facility and inspect it in person at that moment. You have the ability to do it, you should. This evening, as an example, was a very, very strong fragrance. Not the plastic smell traditionally, it was more of a sweet smell, VOC based, I would say. And from my conversations with DEC in the past, probably most likely Avery, and from my inspection this evening, I walked the path and I drove around. It seemed to be coming from that direction. Very difficult to tell definitively because the discharge is well over your head, takes some time for it to dissipate and get to the ground level, but my best guess would have been Avery. It's something you still want to address. And I also wanted to add that the TRC report shows elevated contaminants, VOCs in particular. And although the representative, the doctor, mentioned that although these levels are elevated and exceed what would be normally reasonable levels, that there's no real danger to the public. But she was unable to confirm that these tests were taken during periods of actual odor incidents. She said maybe one was in parallel with or in conjunction with a particular odor issue. So in order to be able to do effective testing, obviously, I think you need to correlate it with the particular incidents because of the so many variables that occur and where and when the odors are projected across the town. So it's something I think additional testing is warranted, and you want to correlate it with events as we've talked about for 2 years. So again, we're making some progress, but there's a lot more to do. I don't want you guys to stop the pressure. Thank you.
We're not. Mike Mandel.
Good evening, Supervisor Stewart, members of the Town Board. For the record, Michael Mandel, a resident of Pearl River. Just a couple of things I want to discuss, not with Aloof, but today I went on the website, 5:26 this afternoon, still no agenda on the website. I was here at the workshop. I know what was supposed to be discussed, but we know in the past we've added things and we've taken things off. This is not the way it should be. When the town clerk's office had the responsibility for putting out the agenda, that agenda was put out when meetings were Monday night, they were out on Friday. When they were on Tuesday, they were out on Monday. 5:30, 26 in the afternoon is no way to be able to read an agenda with new items, with items removed. It's not a professional way. And as we all know, anybody who has put out documents in the past, is one word you put on top of it until it's final: draft. And if that can't be done, there's something wrong with the whole process in this town. I just want to thank Parks and Recreation as well as Highway, who I think contributed to it, for their work at the Cherrybrook Park. The removal of the old skating ring is a great start in the process over there. And although the grass is not, or the trees have not been planted, it has made a significant difference on the way the area looks. Too bad the United Water or Suez doesn't spend money on knowing where their turnoffs are and their valves are and their piping is, if they spend some money on taking care of that rather than fighting the public over the desalinization plant, which they lost, although we're paying for half of their problem. So, and the last thing I just want to say tonight, item 12. I remember for the last several years, one of the members who comes to the town board meeting on a regular basis, Esther Baitler, continued to ask for it, and I'm glad to see that it's on the agenda tonight, even though she didn't mention it. It's a great thing to see. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we can switch over to the public hearing, since we did advertise it. Well, we didn't wait for Larry. We proceeded with the public comment. Larry is the usual architecture guy. Yeah. So we can either cut over to the public hearing, or we can finish up with public comment. Yeah, I got Chris Dunnigan. I know he's here for the hearing. Is anybody else, just by raise of hand, here for the hearing about telecommunications? Okay, because then why don't we just take care of that in case, because he signed up for a particular time. So let's hold open our public comment in general for a moment and cut over to our scheduled public hearing related to an amendment to town code having to do with telecommunications apparatuses on buildings. It's an aesthetic and zoning issue which has come up, and there's proposals to modify town code to address it. Tonight is just a public hearing. We do have on our agenda, I believe we have the SECRA, and we have the local law as amended in there, so we can move this item through tonight, providing the town board has considered all the evidence. But I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Second from Tom Divany. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. So, Mr. Dunnigan, you signed in to speak to the board on this issue. I know we also received a detailed email, I think this afternoon, which I saved, and so you got it. Tom's got a copy, and we appreciate the detailed review and the suggestions that you made. But go ahead and speak.
Good evening, Chris Dunnigan, Pro River. First, thank you guys for addressing the board approval process of this. I think that was a hole that was in the existing law where some could get through with just the building inspector, where some had to go through the board approval process. So that, I think, is a good change for the whole town. The one thing I wanted to address, though, was kind of one of the main things here is just the aesthetics of these things. There's limited ways a town can regulate these based on my understanding. The FCC says you can't do it based on health. The state gives them certain rights in the right-of-way that are, I see you guys are going to address that in a few weeks, but there's certain limits to what you can regulate there. One of the main things you can do is regulate the aesthetics of these and make sure that they follow a particular style or approach. I think being specific on those might be rather difficult to do given the many different sites you can do it. One of the things, and just some research that I've done, is some towns require stealth screening, is what it's called, on these antennas. I think, Mr. Valentine, you referenced it last time. You go to Jersey, you don't see these things because they hide them very, very well. And what the screening does is essentially forces the antenna to fit within the existing architecture of a building, look exactly like a telephone pole, extends maybe 3 feet, but it's all brown. It looks like it's part of the actual pole. And there's a whole slew of different ways you can do this. It would be my suggestion, my personal suggestion, that the town takes an approach to amending the code to make it the intent of the law to have applicants come to the boards with the screening in mind already, right? That way, when it comes, there's no question of what the expectations of the town are. I don't know if it needs to be specific, but just general screening in such a way that it fits with the architecture or whatnot. There's other laws that are out there too that a little less specific and a little bit more just make it match the color and the texture, where that actually gets to be difficult depending on how they're mounted and how they're done. So the stealth screening really seems like a good way to do it. A bunch of different municipalities have done this and it's helped them kind of get things through the process. The antennas are coming. There's no way to stop it. With the way everything's going to wireless, they're going to be there. So just as long as we can regulate them so they look like part of the community, that's, I think, a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that comment. Anybody else here on the question of the public hearing for the antennas? All right, I'm not seeing any hands up. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing related to that. Second from Tom Divney. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, so let's cut back over to our public. Go ahead.
That's the question, John. Like, to do the stealth screening that Chris Donegan, how difficult will that be to add?
Is that a substantial change that we have to go through the whole process again, or is it a minor change?
Well, the purpose of the local law
is to require that applicants, even as to existing structures in non-residential zones, go to the planning board. The planning board can do that under its existing powers. In fact, it has done that. I think stealth screening is what you would call the requirements that were made above the Dunkin' Donuts on Middletown Road in Pearl River. I mean, I don't think it has to be specifically laid out in the law. They have the authority.
It also goes to the Architectural Review Board.
Which then can recommend.
To put that change in, you're saying that they already have the ability, so it wouldn't be a significant change.
No, I don't think it's
that the board should consider the stealth screening as part of the process.
No, it's not a significant change.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
That's a good,
Yeah, we might be able to just put a phrase in there as a guideline.
No,
Do you have wording for that? John,
No.
will you get wording for that?
Yes.
All right. John will get wording that we'll vote on that amendment.
Sometimes we can do
included
these things.
before we vote.
okay.
all right, thanks, John.
All right, so take a look at that. You'll have
So-
a little time because we have a few more people
Oh,
signed
so
in
we're
for
gonna
public comment.
continue this later tonight, or?
Yeah,
Vote on it.
vote
All right.
on it once it gets.
All right, all right,
Let's see
sounds
where,
good.
let's see where John gets with that, because
All right.
Should we
we want to make sure you do it
close
right.
public comment if nobody
We
else
would,
wants?
we would
We closed public comment for the antenna hearing.
keep the hearing open
Um,
and go back to public comment, I guess.
Yeah, so we held open our general public comment. I'd like to continue with that now. Let's see, Mr. Mandel spoke. Neil Meltzer, still here? There he is.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Neil Meltzer. I'm a resident of Tapan. I've lived here for 13 years, happily. I'm married. I have 2 kids, and the reason I'm here for the first time is because of this aloof issue. It does concern me. It got me out of the house. It got me to attend one of these meetings, and it's probably taken too long. So I'm not going to say much about the specifics. I think the other presenters did do a great job at alluding to what's going on here, and I can tell you that I am not the only one that is concerned about this. And to put it simply, this is not kosher. Whatever's going on here with those corporations, whatever's going on how you guys are handling it, something is not kosher, and we all are very concerned about it, and we get that feeling. If we want to live in this town still, we have to put all the stuff that we do, the stuff that you guys do here every week, every month, all the politics, all the community, all the family stuff, everything that you do, the purpose of it goes to waste if there are people in this community that are going to get sick, that are going to die from all these carcinogens in our environment, in our air. None of this matters. It doesn't. My saying always was health first, and this is not a good situation here. It's not. You can deny as much as you want, but then it might creep up, in your backyard, in your own home. and something really should be done about this. And I applaud all the people that have come and stood in front of this board for many years trying to do something about this. And the reason I'm here is because not only is it coming towards my home, but it's coming towards my son's schools. It's coming towards Cottage Lane, the middle school right up the street, and then eventually when they're in high school. Bottom line is this: I don't know if I want to be here. And we might get a reputation for, do you want to live in Orangetown? Because this is a toxic town. So where do our property values go? Not to say that this is amusing or not to be harsh about it, but hey, I can always sell my house to some of the Hasidic Jews. At least that's a glass half full, huh? Something has to be done about this. It really does. From a concerned citizen, family person, school teacher. Thank you.
Cheryl McNeil. Cheryl McNeil.
Hello, Town Board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I've spoken here before as a librarian at the Orangeburg Library. I'm here tonight as a homeowner. I live at 56 Old Western Highway in Blauvelt. I've owned that home for 10 years, and I'm here to speak about the effect that Aloof Plastics is having. The next person on your public comment list is Martine Littlewood. She's a very close friend of mine, and she lives right next door to me on Old Western. She is not here. She's at a parent-teacher conference and was going to try and get here, but said she can't. I would like to pass on what she had to say as well, because she asked me to. We came out here, I came out here in large part because of the work that Clean Air Orangetown has done, and so I'd like to thank them. This is my first time speaking on this, but I will be showing up at the future town board meetings, and I know that Martine will be here as well, and probably our husbands. I think there needs to be some rabble-rousing going on here, and I'm glad that there's a lot going on social media. I think you're going to have a lot more people showing up here to complain. You know, we can't be quiet about this because, as the speakers have said before, this has been going on for way too long. So my first acquaintance with Aloof was when I went on the beautiful Rails to Trail trail that you guys have built, and I have to assume that at least hundreds of thousands, if not well over $1 million, has been spent on that. I don't know what. All that money has gone into this beautiful creation, and now we can't enjoy it. I go out there on my bike, I go out there to walk the dog, and all I can smell is this horrible, like, flowery scent. And sometimes it's that, sometimes it's a plasticky smell. And my understanding is that this has been going on for years and that the town board knows about it, and yet it's still happening. So I think that's completely unacceptable. Martine is completely up in arms about this because she said that she came home from work today, and again, this is Blauvelt, so we're quite far removed from it, and yet the first thing she smelled when she got out of the car was Aloof Plastics. And her concern is that she has small children. I also have a child who's 17. The schools are right there. Cottage Lane is right close to us, just a few blocks away. These children are out at recess at the very time that these smells are wafting across our community. And we know that they are not just smells, they also contain carcinogens. When everything happened with Flint, Michigan, I think a lot of us were like, okay, how does that happen? How does this happen for years and years and years, and this community is affected? And nothing gets done until children start being poisoned and dying. What I'm seeing here, what Martine is seeing, is that something similar may be happening here, and that's really scary. So it's not just about property values, which we're also concerned about. It's about our children and about our health. And we expect you, as our elected officials, to do something about this. Because corporations, as we know, will get away with what they can. But we elect you. This is the whole point of democratic government, is that you make a business-friendly environment, but you hold them accountable. So please, do your job.
Thank you. Michael Shanahan. Mr. Shanahan.
Good evening. I'm Michael Shanahan. I've lived in Orangeburg for 15 years. Right now I'm in Palisades, New York. I'm here to talk to you tonight about something somewhat less serious than spoliation of our environment, and hopefully something that is more immediately correctable. And that is our community's relationship with the film industry. For numerous reasons, our community is ideally set to work with the film industry in producing their motion products, their motion picture products, and their TV products. I have had the good fortune of working with the movie industry that has filmed several movies at my house in Palisades, and have always had a good experience with them. And that's 3 or 4 times over the last 6 or 7 years. Recently, though, there has been a chilling effect on their involvement in our community that had to do with some of the procedural aspects of obtaining the permit, which have been described as cumbersome and unpredictable. I understand that that there is initiative pending that would resolve some of those issues, and I come here tonight to show my support for that initiative. And I'll cede the rest of my time to somebody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy Hancock? Tracy still here? Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy Hancock from Pearl River. I came tonight to ask if the town was still considering addressing the issues of the flooding of Muddy Creek. I think the town's been aware of that for a few years, and forgive me if I just haven't heard any news on it for a while, but we know that Muddy Creek is being choked by vegetation in some areas. There are structure problems, there's garbage, and in light of the clear cutting of 8 acres of trees and the adjacent property, the hillside property, I think it is something that should be dealt with sooner rather than later and before the next big storm comes. That's all I came here to say, basically, but I do feel compelled to address the second gentleman who spoke tonight. Just as part of a group of neighbors who were fighting to save our neighborhood from the hillside development, we dealt with some of the same issues. We dealt with the zoning board that gave out variances without considering the community. We dealt with the planning board that dismissed legitimate concerns that we had. We dealt with disrespectful treatment from the planning board chair. We're dealing now with the loss of our property values. And so this is a problem, and it's obviously not just a problem in our neighborhood, it's a problem in many neighborhoods. It might be too late to save my neighborhood, which was once really beautiful. And what I fear, just listening here tonight, is that we're losing Orangetown one neighborhood at a time.
Thank you. That's it for folks who signed in. By raise of hands, is anybody else here to address the board on a topic? Yes, ma'am? In front? Yeah. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Ivania Alpert. I'm from Piermont. I'm a physician, and I've been an assistant professor at an academic medical research center for over 10 years now. I was also a member of a team of physicians who developed initial guidelines for the Department of Health on preventing lead poisoning in pregnant and breastfeeding women. What's happening in Orangetown is, like the other speaker said, our Flint. Given my background, I actually feel quite comfortable looking at the data that was collected by TRC Solutions, and I feel comfortable comparing it to Mr. Divany's cheery pre-election statements about how aloof plastics poses no health risks, and that the levels are, and this is a quote, the levels are not, now I can't read my handwriting, of the, never mind, I can't read my handwriting to see his direct quote, but basically that the levels are fine and not anything to be concerned about. As a physician, reading through Dr. Vetrano's findings about the air quality, I actually am extremely concerned about what I saw. There's 2 questions that we need to address, and we need to look at the data differently in order to answer each of these questions. So the first question is, what are the short-term health effects from this pollution? And this applies to folks who are just there infrequently. So somebody who, goes for a run occasionally on the rail trail, or a landscaper who goes to Blauvelt for a few hours a week. And Dr. Vitrano did answer this question. So there's one substance, acrolein, that appears to exceed federal and state limits for short-term safety. This is an irritant. It can lead to respiratory problems and is especially a problem for people with asthma who are exercising in the area. The second question that I think is more important is, what are the long-term health effects from this pollution on people who are exposed to this air on a regular basis? This includes students and employees at all the local schools, Cottage Lane, South Orangetown Middle School, Teasy High School, Dominican College. It includes people who work in Blauvelt's industrial zone. And it's not so straightforward what happens here. I think it's fair to say, if we assume that the 3 days of measurements that were taken in August, if that is typical of what every day is like, and there's no reason to assume that that's not the case, then we have a major problem on our hands. So the average levels over those 3 days, specifically of 4 compounds, but most notably of acrolein, are through the roof compared to New York and New Jersey norms. We should be extremely concerned about these long-term exposure rates. We have children who attend schools there for years, residents who live there for decades, and it is not at all clear that this is safe. Dr. Vitrano did not address these long-term concerns in her report, and this needs to be studied further. So the take-home message from the board at the last meeting was, there's nothing to worry about, don't worry about it. There's actually a lot to worry about. When we look at the air quality in and around Blauvelt, we see the air is polluted with acrolein to a level that exceeds the level in any New Jersey county by 20-fold. That's not the air I want my kids breathing. As a physician, I'm concerned not just for my own children, but also for the well-being of the entire community. This problem goes beyond an odor problem. It's very concerning that the town has allowed Aloof Plastics to continue operating in the presence of such alarming data. I urge you to stop any additional development in this area until you can review the long-term safety of this type of chemical exposure and guarantee the health of Orangetown residents.
I think I saw a hand up. Dimitri?
Members of the board, Dimitri Lattis of Piermont. I wanted to take a moment to read a letter that a group of colleagues and I have put together that addresses this very issue of Aloof and the industrial complex on 303 and what it's doing to the air around there. So, dear Orangetown Town Board, we are concerned health professionals in Orangetown. There are 4 emissions toxins whose levels are measured to exceed New York State annual guideline concentrations in the residential and recreational areas around the Aloof Plastics Industrial Zone in Blauvelt. Intermittent, short-term exposures to these chemicals at the measured levels is unlikely to cause health effects beyond what has been reported by residents. However, if these concentrations are representative of daily air quality through most of the year, then the exposure to these toxins might cause adverse health effects to residents, students, and those employed in the area who may be exposed on a daily basis over months or years. Especially at risk are the young and the old, and those with previous health concerns such as asthma, cancer, or compromised immune systems. Further long-term testing is suggested to confirm these findings, and mitigation measures which would improve the air quality surrounding the Aloof industrial zone are warranted. Additionally, the concentrations of acrolein were elevated to a degree that may pose health risks even during a short 1-hour exposure. Any discussion regarding any proposed additional industrial activity in the vicinity should be guided by these findings, which show pollution levels already exceeding New York State thresholds. And this is signed by Dr. Robert Wells, Lorraine Vitale, RN, Dr. Nellie Vega Wu, DNP, Dr. Maria Jose Romero, PhD, Dr. Catherine O'Connor, MD, myself, Dr. Kathleen Kelly, DNP, Dr. Peter Gordon, MD, Dawn Howie, RN, Bernadette Delaccio, RN, Dr. Rafael Caniza, DDS, Miriam Byrne, nutritionist, and Dr. Vanya Albert. So why is there this disconnect between what we heard here over a month ago with the toxicologist and what you can all see on that graphic I'm giving you? And it comes down to something actually that in my conversation with Dr. Vitrano that I had the other day, and thank you, Mr. Divany, for setting that up. She said one thing which was very poignant. It all comes down to the backgrounds. That's the crux of it. And the backgrounds she chose to use. I'm sorry?
No, I just couldn't hear you say the word backgrounds before.
Okay. The backgrounds that she chose to use to tell us all that we were within background range were EPA monitored sites across the US. These are ugly, ugly places, a lot of them, okay? And that is not what we want to be compared to. What I've done in the graphic is try to compare it to something which I think is more appropriate. Normal values across the US, some of which are in the same document that she cited. Counties throughout New Jersey, every county in New Jersey, many-fold lower than what we're measuring here. So now, is acrolein something that's going to kill you on the spot? No. And that's where perhaps her comments regarding safety can be accepted. But if we are exposed to these things over time, we have to look at small amounts that would affect our health over a cumulative period. And that is really, that's where the disconnect comes in. Mm-hmm. And it comes into what backgrounds we look at. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dimitri. Any other hands up? I see Jamie Ross. Jamie?
Hi, my name's James Ross. I'm from NIAC. I'm an air pollution scientist. And I'm also going to speak on the ALUF issue, and the views that I'm going to tell you represent myself and my supervisor, Dr. Steve Chilrod, who was here last month. So, in response to the documented community complaints of symptoms and smells, canister sampling of ambient air was done by TRC, including both 24 and 2-hour community-based sampling. Several exceedances of state and federal guideline criteria were documented in this sampling campaign. Repeated exceedance of such guidelines indicates the need for further sampling to determine the extent of pollution and exposure of residents to these toxic compounds. 1, the subset of 2-hour community air samples that were reported in the TRC November report had an average acrolein value of 3.1 microgram per meter cubed, which exceeds New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's short-term guideline concentration of 2.5 microgram per meter cubed. Altogether, 9 of the 22 TRC samples that I've seen exceeded the short-term guideline for acrolein. And then several of the 24-hour measurements for acrolein and 3 other VOCs, benzene, carbon tetrachloride, and hexachlorobutadiene, were above NISDEC's annual guideline concentration, or the AGC value. Specifically, at least 68% of the 22 TRC samples taken from August to October exceeded the AGC for acrolein. And the other 32% of the samples may also have exceeded the annual guideline. We don't know that because they were below the detection limit. So given that there are few, if any, other measurements of these compounds in this area, these measurements are our current best estimate of annual levels. Thus, the pollution level in Blauvelt is concerning from both the point of view of the annual and the short-term guidelines. Acrolein was on average 20 times higher than the CDC's Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry minimum risk level at the intermediate, that's 15 to 365-day exposure duration. And let's see, acrolein was also higher than any site-specific measurements published by NISDEC in 2016-2017 on their website of a dozen air sampling sites they have around New York State. So given that the NISDEC levels and the AT-SDR levels are exceeded multiple times in these data, further testing is called for to understand whether these potentially unhealthy levels of air pollutants are typical for this area. Future sampling should consider use of methods with limits of detection below the annual guideline concentration levels. And also a brief comment of the study design. The study design, the TRC study design of the sampling to date has limited value in our view for identifying the source of the chemical odor. There was no real reference site upwind and far from the facilities, and the sampling time periods were not ideal for this purpose, given that wind direction and speed and intermittent appearance of the odor. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Way in the back.
Hi, my name is Alex Gadd. I am a resident of Blauvelt. I live on Murphy Court, right behind Aloof. I have 3 quick questions that I'd like you hopefully to address for us. You've heard tonight that Aloof is a terrible neighbor. You've heard that regardless of what you've tried to do so far, they have been unable to keep the encroachment of smells and odors from encroaching on my life and the lives of many residents, as well as potentially threatening our health. And we're still hearing facts about that right now. So my questions are, A, what are you as a board able to do? Because I've seen a lot of effort from all of you, and I know you're concerned. You're members of this community as well. What are you doing now? What's the next step now that clearly the remediation techniques that they put into place that we waited months and months for aren't working? So what's next? Secondly, what's being done to coordinate your intent and efforts with the intents and efforts of the other boards that we come in front of, the zoning board, the planning board? It seems like we talk to different people who have different agendas, and there's not one focused Orangetown approach to this issue. And so I'd like, well, I guess that's 2 questions, but I'd like you to address those 2 questions for us if you could, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw another hand. Yes, sir, and sitting down with a sweatshirt on.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Bill Coleman. I live at 116 Hayes Street. I didn't plan on speaking, so excuse me for the recreational attire.
It's all right.
But just from hearing everyone else here speak tonight, I've been a passive participant in the process with Aloof. My street backs up right to the wooded areas that eventually lead to Aloof. Happened to have a day off from work today. Did my civic duty, went outside, raked leaves for the better part of 4 hours, only to be met with that smell. We all know what it is. If it looks like a duck, it smells like a duck, it's a duck. We know what it is. New York City has a campaign that they instituted after some mishaps with natural gas, where if you smell something, say something. We see here at this board tonight, a lot of people are smelling things, a lot of people are saying things. I implore you to do more. We have to be able to do more. We know what it is. My 6-year-old asked for a basketball hoop for Christmas. My 3-year-old, who very much energetically taught himself to ride a 2-wheeler, asked for a bicycle. 2 of those things should definitely be granted. I shouldn't have to question whether or not we should be able to send our kids outside and be subjected to these smells and odors. So I will tug at your heartstrings tonight. I will implore you, let's all get together on this and do more. I rake my leaves, I put them out. It's my civic duty. I don't want them blowing on to my neighbors' lawns. Let's be civic about this. We all have a responsibility in this community to be fair to one another. Aloof is running rampant. This is a subjugation. I feel like we're handcuffed. I'm frustrated with the process. I've emailed out a dozen times. No one showed up to my house. I've gotten 1 email back from Mr. Divney, which I do appreciate. But the process ends there. I've sat in the back corner of this board meeting for about 10 times, hoping, and tonight I hired a babysitter to be here, hoping to see that there's going to be an answer. These measures for Aloof, which we have asked And I was hoping for an epiphany with the new scrubbers that are being put in place. The problem has just only gotten worse. I emailed you guys today as well. It was 4 hours worth from noon till 4, and it's choking. And people at the bus stop, they're not going to get up, or for whatever reason, they couldn't be at these meetings, but they're all saying the same things. It's time. I think something more has to be done, so I just wanted to get up and share my feelings. I know you guys are identifying with the problem. If you're feeling the same stress as we are, hopefully we can all come to a resolution and try to, at least have them act more civilly. I mean, in this day and age and what we're seeing with Twitter and social media and things running rampant and losing faith in society, it has to start here with local government, and we can do something. So I appreciate the scientists and the environmentalists. By no means am I an expert, but what I am is a concerned resident, a dad first and a taxpayer second. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late. I was teaching CCD. But first off, congratulations to our board members who were reelected. I look forward to some more time with you in this fashion, as I hope you look forward to this time with me. And I mean that sincerely. I wanted to read to you something that's so important to me because it's so personal, and it's the apology that Christine Todd Whitman gave after she realized that the science that she had been told regarding the emissions after 9/11 was found to be false. And she's very sincere in her apology. And she says, whatever went wrong, we need to acknowledge, and people need to be helped. And I'm very sorry that people are sick. It took her 15 years to say that, but she did say that. And the reality is, people are sick and still sick. I'm sick. I got cancer from 9/11. And I don't want anyone else to get it. And it's no more personal than that. I have been through hell for the past 2.5 years. And I don't want to do this anymore. We have got to be insane if we are allowing something like this to happen again. The scientists gave her what they thought was good information. They were wrong. We now have guidelines, short and long-term guidelines, of 4 outputs from the stack that I didn't make up these short-term guidelines. The rest of the medical community didn't make it up. Clean Air for Orangetown didn't. The government did. And yet, in the report, we exceeded them. And then we were told, but don't worry about it. TRC does not feel that this is a danger to you. Well, I beg to differ, because I've lived the ramifications of people believing something that goes against the science. And I feel like I just keep saying it and saying it and saying it. But think back to my 2 years of chemotherapy and surgery and radiation. And my cancer is aggressive. It's not if, it's when. It's coming back. And it's because of the air that I breathed down there that I was told was safe. And I lost Bobby Williamson and Joe Zadroga and Chris Strucker. And I could go on and on with this. And it's because of a mistake. And no apology in the world will bring my friends back. And no apology in the world will save what I've been through. And my friends say to me, why do you keep going there, Kathy? Why do you keep going? I'm here because I don't want anyone else to suffer. And I will not be silenced. I will not. And I please implore you, please listen to us and look at the data. And please don't make the same mistake again. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I'm looking to see if there are any other folks who want to speak tonight. I'm not seeing any hands up. I'll make a motion to close the public portion I have a second from over here? From Dennis Troy, all in favor say aye. Thanks so much to everybody who came out tonight and made comments. Why don't we start with Aloof, just because there's a lot that has been said and can be said about that, and I won't claim on the fly to be able to hit all the points, but I'll just start, all right? I know other town board members and others have worked hard on this issue. But number one, and also we're in a public forum, and there's always folks here who have been here a lot, and others who maybe haven't been a part of the dialogue for as long. So I just wanted to say that there's been a real problem with Aloof's foot dragging, its odors, the emissions that are aspect of those odors, and some emissions maybe you can't smell. In either case, it's been a concern for the community. It's not fixed yet, and it needs to be. And everybody here understands that and agrees to it. It's easy to say that. My point with that is that real work has been done and is being done, and I don't want people to leave this room, or if they're watching TV, with the impression that statements like nothing has been done are actually true. I think it's more helpful if everybody takes stock of what has been done and then tries to figure out what next step are, as Mr. Gadd referenced. So just in general terms, what has been done is there has been a community outcry. There has been a system set up for monitoring and reporting odor complaints. There have been dual enforcement actions by the town through the zoning board's authority and through the DEC through their permitting authority. They're very different authorities, different legal grounds, and different criteria for what constitutes compliance. So that's been an ongoing process. Every step of the way, we all have been advocating, and there's folks on the town board and certainly in our town staff, Vicki sitting here, my assistant, and also folks in the community who have developed relationships with both the DEC and the zoning board and made sure these issues are tracked. Where we've gotten, ultimately, just to jump over a whole bunch of steps, is to the culmination of the DEC and the building department's effort, which essentially was that Aloof was required to design and install an odor, basically a ventilation system that would capture all emissions and treat them to a level that was acceptable under the law and their permit. It's been a long time coming, and it shouldn't have taken as long as it has. Like I said before, they're big on the foot dragging. And it's been complex, and frankly, it just has taken a while to wade through the intricacies of that and make sure that there were times when I wanted to slow the process down because I didn't want the DEC to agree to an engineering plan that we all didn't think was going to be sufficient for the problem. And so we tried to make sure that engineering solution was really going to be sufficient. Of course, the problem is it's installed, I guess, although it's not completely verified as to whether the installation is complete. Our building department was up on the roof a week and a half or so ago and pointed out a couple of defects in the roof that were emitting odorous gases and some exhaust fans on the north side of the building that were emitting gases. Those need to be decommissioned and capped off so that the new systems can capture all of the ventilation that might be going to the outdoors. And so we're right at that moment where that system, for better or for worse, of course we'd all wish that it were 100% sufficient to eliminate the odor problem. We've always hoped, but none of us has really bet on that. But it is what it is. And the odor complaints that are coming in this week and probably next week as well will be happening in a new chapter, which is the chapter after the completion of the supposed solution to the odor problem. And And that is exactly the situation where we need to be talking about what our next steps are if it continues to smell. And sorry, I don't know what you just heard, but this is, I think, a fair description of where we've gotten. And if anybody wants to try to take my words out of context or just highlight one of them, they may not capture the point, which is that the Aloof has been derelict as a good neighbor, and that we've gone through a number of steps to get where we are, and there are steps to follow, and the terrain has changed because the new ventilation systems are installed. And that brings up the question of how are we going to enforce going forward if the odors continue. And frankly, I have the rather skeptical view that they probably will. But there also may be odors from neighboring factories, and we need to start shifting more resources over to that question. One of the things that we've found out through this process is that there's always ways of improving our game, and there have been a number of steps that have been taken relative to that. And for example, earlier someone mentioned the olfactometer, which is a tool that code enforcers can use to measure odor intensity, and actually viewed it as a slap in the face that we had been speaking about getting our code enforcers trained in that. Maybe it's a slap in the face because it's a year after it was originally discussed. But the point that I wanted to say for anybody who's curious about the details or nuance of it is that it's incorporating the use of the olfactometer into an amended town code that gives the town the legal basis to use the olfactometer as a compliance testing device. And so you know, it would be great if standing up in a room and rallying got us there, but it doesn't entirely. It motivates us quite well, actually. But those are some things that still are outstanding that need to be done. So that's why we commissioned an environmental chemist, Sander Bonville, to work with us to evaluate our code for odor, for particulate matter, for smoke, for vibration, and for other kinds of impacts to neighborhoods from industrial operations, and suggest ways of updating how compliance is to be measured. And odor is part of that. And we've hashed out, with his help, a number of amendments to our town code, and with the help of our town attorney, Dennis Michaels, some amendments to the procedures by which the town can use these standards to move more quickly towards enforcement actions, because the legal basis of enforcement needs to be there, otherwise you get to court and you lose. And he's the expert in that. So I hope by providing the level of detail that I have, it's sort of given a sense of where the point of intervention is now for our community. I really think that we need to focus on finishing our verification through the building department, and Jane Slavin is here. She's been very active on this, of the actual installation to the engineering plan of what was supposed to be put up there as far as ventilation goes. And that requires some more activity, both on the part of the building department and on the part of the company providing plans and paperwork, and on the part of DEC verifying that everything is installed as they require it to be. And then I think it's probably still going to smell, frankly. So then we're in a situation of enforcement continuing, and that's the issue that we need to be talking about next after all that stuff is installed, and presumably there's still some odor issues, and transferring the full sort of power of that enforcement process to any neighboring facilities that might be creating a quality of life or an environmental hazard as well. So that, I hope, provides some perhaps more detail than most people want to hear of kind of where we are and where we're going with that. I think I'll just stop instead of trying to go back to other things people have said, but let those comments stand for better or for worse, and maybe turn over the podium here to Tom Divany, who's also worked on this issue.
All about Aloof tonight. TRC will do additional testing for VOCs. TRC will be on the phone with myself, Annie, Jane Slavin tomorrow regarding odor testing around Aloof. What's that? Everything. I mean, right now, the Avery Dennison's about to enter into a DEC consent order. It should be in the next week or two. So there'll be continued testing. There'll be odor testing. And more importantly, I was hopeful that this would actually work. And I emailed Mr. Gadd and Mr. Coleman, and I said, ventilation system's going on. It's going to be 7 times stronger. Hopefully, I'm hopeful this will work. I don't know where we are right now at Aloof. I thought that they turned the system on. If the system didn't work, the DEC would come in with a hammer and start finding the bejesus out of them. That's not happening. That's not happening. So, and once I realized that, I started doing my research to get us on even keel with them. And that is by looking at environmental attorneys from the city and land use attorneys that can advise us on where we're going to go. If it's litigation, if it's compliance, if it's dealing with the DEC. So we're going to be hiring, hopefully, I talked to the firm today. They gave me an engagement agreement, which I'll give to the board later on today. But, and that's where I want to go, because we need to be on the same level as them. Their attorneys are up here. Our attorneys are great, but this is a specialized area. It's not just Aloof, it's also Avery Dennison, and how we interact with the DEC, because I do think George Schweikert has done a very good job. He's been responsive. He's sent one of his field agents who lives in Clarkstown down to Cottage Lane the last couple of days, but I don't think it's enough. And even though I like George, we have to see if there's possible actions we can take regarding the DEC, because they have a level up here and we're below them, and we were following their lead, and I think we need to hire an attorney that can get us on a level field with them, and I think that's where we are. I'm very disappointed. I know everyone else is, and and we will be meeting with Jane and the DEC tomorrow, and if people here want to meet with us individually or to meet with Jane or whoever, we'll make ourselves available.
Sorry, but we're not gonna. We're in a town board meeting, and we're not gonna have people. Excuse me. You're not gonna want to hear this, but you have to talk to us after the meeting, or appreciate that. Ma'am, I said a lot of things, but that's because it was our turn to respond to public comments. We're trying to run a meeting where we can get some work done. Other town council folks want to weigh in?
Yeah, I would like to. First, thank you all for coming. I know it's tough to come out here sometimes and speak in public, but I appreciate the pouring of disgust, for lack of a better word. I agree with you. I live in this community. I work in this community. I'm never more than 1.5 miles from Aloof almost all day long. So I agree with you. I think more testing has to be done. We have to get background levels, not just from right around the plant, but from the entire area, to see if it is directly from those plants right in that area, or if it's the background of the area of the United States in which we live. We can't let her pick the backgrounds. We have to have her do all of Orangetown backgrounds so that we have something actually to really look at it and compare it to. There was a few things which I think are misquoted. I've been on the board going on 6 years, 7 years. The first we actually heard about Aloof, or that I've heard about Aloof, or heard about complaints about Aloof, not only as a resident, but as a local businessman and as a member on the town board, was from Allison Sullivan maybe 2 years ago. Coming up on 2 years ago.
Excuse me. Listen, nobody here is denying that aloof
Okay.
exists as a problem.
No, that's not
No,
what I
it-
said. And, you know, I never butt in
We
when
know
people
that.
get up to the microphone and say stuff. I never do that. It's called being respectful. And we're lacking that in the community, now in the country. So I got to be honest with you. The first that, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the first that I, as a town board member or as a community member, heard about aloof was about 2 years ago. And that is the first time that I've heard about it. Whether you like it or not, I wasn't privy to the emails that were before I was.
Sir, I think everybody already knows
I can
that,
acknowledge
sir.
the fact that complaints have been made to other. I know it goes way back. What I said was the first I was aware of it. And that's what I said, and I said it very clearly, I thought. So, yep, and I'm saying it again. Okay, so you made your point and I'm making mine, okay? So the first I was aware of it was about 2 years ago. The complaints have been going back for quite some time. They didn't come to me. They went to previous town boards, I guess to the county health department, to the DEC. But as a town board and as a town board member, the first we heard about it was about 2 years ago. Avery Dennison only came up in the last 4 months, 5 months, because aloof went like this. It's not us, it's them. I never heard about any complaints about Avery Dennison until aloof said, it's them. So then we started checking Avery Dennison, mostly because the DEC agreed with them, which threw a caveat in everything we were doing. So now we're expanding it to look at all of the factories that do manufacturing down there because we want to eliminate it from all of them. And we have been working very diligently and hard on this. I know it seems like it hasn't been, but we really have been. The lawyer Tom is talking about, or the law firm, the reason we're considering them is because they're experts in environmental litigation. And they've had extensive work with the DEC. So we're hoping that they could push the DEC, who actually has the ability to shut the firm down. Because that's the only way we're going to get them to do something, right? We all know it. The only way you're going to get them to do something is the threat to shut them down or to cost them money. We can jump up and down and yell all we want, but we got to hit them in the pocketbook or they're not going to do anything. And that's why we're hiring this attorney. Now, it may have taken a long time, I agree, but you have to build the case in order to go to court. And I think we as a town board have been working diligently on it. I know the results ain't what we want. I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think more testing is absolutely needed. And I think, you know, if there's anyone can come up with anything else we can do as a town board, we can't go down and put a chain on the gate. I just can't do it.
Excuse me. Excuse me. It really doesn't work that way, okay? Dimitri, you of all people know that in order to do an effective town board meeting, we have to observe some rules of decorum.
I'm done.
Yeah. You know, I'm sorry to have to say this because the issue is so important. But to have a meeting disrupted in this way, it really actually slows down the decision making and makes us less effective as a community. And that's the reality of it. And I'm really glad that you're walking out of the room right now because we need to deal with people who actually step up and have a useful conversation about issues. I want to turn to, I said it, but I'm out of here in a month. And you've been insulting, sir. You've been insulting. Dennis? Dennis? I think that's a great idea because the irresponsible party here is Aloof Industries. And so I recommend anybody who wants to boycott or protest or vent their anger, choose a target which really isn't already doing everything they can think of to do to help. Okay? That's a simple message. I'm right behind you. I will be there too. There are certainly other tactics that can be employed to get a corporation to be a better neighbor. The tactic of disrupting a town meeting and telling town board members that they've done nothing when it's patently false, I don't think actually helps the process very much at all. I've said my piece. Other town board members want to weigh in?
Yeah, just quickly. I've worked in the town for a number of years. Going back to 1979, I was hired by the police department. Aloof did smell back then. I did not know what the smell was. It was a smell coming from a factory. As far as I knew, there were no complaints, but occasionally you could smell it. And you smelled it, and then it went away, and then it came back again. Just to that point, I live in Blauvelt. My son lives on Erie Street across the way. I have two grandchildren, young grandchildren there. One of my children, at age 5, was diagnosed with childhood leukemia. Okay, so there's a bunch of things. This is personal to me, and I feel the same way. What I want to comment on tonight was I think that we did try different ways, and I thank the medical community for coming out. And, sir, your expertise, I think there's a lot of people in the community that know a whole lot more about this than I do. So if you want to either give us a direction or give me direction, that I will certainly accept it. So I don't think that any of us are looking not to take care of this. I know that I am, and you know, that's pretty much it. So, I mean, I live in the community. I've lived here for, God, 35, 40 years, whatever it is. And my son bought a house around the corner from me. He lives in the community with my two grandchildren. I don't want to see this going on any longer either. But again, we stepped in. We got to a certain point. Now we have the medical community involved, and they can have a different spin on it. And like I said, you're welcome to call. You're welcome to give direction, and we will try and follow that direction. Okay, thank you.
I expected the DEC to bring everything to fruition, and obviously that was incorrect. And one of the big disappointments was when Jane Slavin, we had a meeting with her, with Jane, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. You had a meeting with Jane Slavin, the head of the building department, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and you had pictures of the roof with open vents, and it was still a major problem. And why the DEC didn't identify that, I have no clue. You know, I see all the emails back and forth with George Schweikert. I also know through the years that the DEC has threatened us with all sorts of fines because of different things dealing with the sewers and the discharges into the Hudson River or discharges from one of our pump stations. And I don't see that same type of aggressiveness from the DEC when they're dealing with Aloof. One of the other things I did ask for Jane Slavin to do was to contact OSHA, which she did, because one of the things, you have people who are working there day in and day out. If there's a danger there, the feds can shut the place down. All right, and again, OSHA, through my own corporate career, the people had paper cuts. At one time, we used to have to do a 6-page form, you know, for somebody getting hurt at work. That's the feds, you know. And here's the thing where it's a serious issue. I don't know what the final answer on this is. I don't. I know Tom is going in another direction here with the environmental lawyers. We're trying to go in different directions. I don't have an answer yet. I don't, and I understand the frustration. And I wish I had an answer, but I don't have an answer yet. And hopefully, whether it's the DEC, the feds, our own performance standards, something has to take hold. And I don't know what that is at this point yet. Hopefully, soon we have an answer.
Thank you, Dennis. I know that we've been at this for a little while. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess, give the board a chance to stretch their legs, folks to chat a bit if that's what they want to do, and then we'll come back into session in a few minutes. John, are you going to have edits for this? It involves talking about specific employees, and you're allowed to do that in executive session.
Does that meet the qualifications, Jeff? All right.
Okay. Now, there was a communication. Do you want to have her make a little report about it? Yeah. Hey, Jane, please. We should have had you speak earlier, but we got a whole lot of channels operating there, and we appreciate you being here, and it's on TV, so please say your update that you were going to provide about Aloof.
Right, obviously there's a lot going on, a lot of things happening that people aren't aware of, so I wanted to just bring everybody up to speed as to what we've been doing from our side. An inspection was performed on November 13th, at which time there were a number of items that were still needed to be addressed, which some were spoken of this evening already. The open vent pipes, the abandoned exhaust fans. They had installed flexible ductwork to the new scrubbers, which was unacceptable, and the anti-vibration mounts on these new scrubbers were actually broken, which you can't operate the units without them being installed. So on November 14th, I issued a memo outlining the outstanding items and requiring that a roof plan be submitted, showing the existing equipment to remain, equipment to be removed, the new equipment locations, and how they were going to deal with any abandoned pieces of equipment and piping. At that time, I also advised that a final certification letter is required to be provided by the applicant's engineering, so that is Carla Parra and Bart Rohde, who's their structural engineer. This is standard practice in the industry and is requested typically at the close of every project that the design professional of record provide this. Yes, the town has a right to ask for an independent engineering report if we see fit. This report will say that, the engineer will say that they're in full compliance. So if they're not in full compliance, then he's lying, in a legal document. So it's a very good process that, again, is followed all the time, and it's part of the building code compliance. On November 19th, Aloof fired up the new system. As everyone is aware, the neighborhood residents are still reporting odors. Not all the work has been completed. So until they are up 100% and these other items are closed out, no one can say if it's working or not. So I received an update from Anthony Lawson, who runs Aloof, today, late afternoon, as he was just returning from Thanksgiving holiday. The exhaust fans that are to be decommissioned as part of the system design on the roof were shut down. When the system was first put up, they were still operating. Kind of defeated the purpose. So those exhaust fans have been shut down. The wall fans in the repro department area are not running, and they will be sealed. They're basically just open. The air just flows freely through them. They will be sealed off, and that will be completed by next Friday, as they had to order components to accomplish that. There are 4 abandoned vent pipes that have been capped. There are 3 left to be done, and they will be done by the end of the week. Permanent steel metal ductwork has been installed in place of the flexible ductwork, and the anti-vibration mounts were replaced, and that's how the system got up and running. The roof plan is expected by December 8th, and again, that'll clearly give us a diagram of what's up there. It's a very large roof area. Inspection of it is difficult in that it's about a 40-foot ladder straight up, and you have to climb over parapets and stuff, so it'd be good to have a roof plan that is, again, signed and sealed by an engineer saying that it's correct. Okay, once these items are received, we'll do another inspection to confirm compliance. I'd also like to address a few questions that have been arising. The first one is, has the building inspector conducted surprise inspections of Aloof? Per New York State Code, it is the duty of the permit holder to notify the code official when the work is ready for inspection. In the absence of an emergency, a code official is not permitted to perform an inspection without the owner's permission. And that goes for any type of project, whether it be a single-family home or a place of business, that they have property rights to. I know not everyone agrees with that, but they do. No one would want us saying, well, we're coming to your home and we're performing a surprise inspection. No one would be happy. We have to give the same courtesy to the business owners. Is a building inspector going out to the area of complaints every time there is a report of odors? I have personally conducted site visits in response to complaints. Can't possibly do them all. I have observed the burning plastic smell and the perfume smell, not necessarily in the locations that they're being reported when I go out. It might be on the other side of 303. So it's interesting how the air moves the smell around. So it's very difficult for anybody to say, well, this is definitely coming from Aloof. I smelt the perfume smell up on the intersection of East Erie and Greenbush Road. That's quite a distance from Aloof. But when I went to the other side of West Erie, past Bailey's and up to Moyson, there was no smell at that time. Again, that was contradictory to the report that I received via email that day. It is very difficult. When I get the report, I will get in the car and drive there. That's somewhere between 7 to 10 minutes. The air changes are quite great. If it's a very windy day, it's gone by the time we get there. The DEC has also sent inspectors to the area on multiple mornings for a few hours of block time. We are waiting, though, for their evaluations. All right. So to enable a viable prosecution with an environmental attorney, which we've spoken about, of an odor violation under the existing performance standards, the accusatory instrument, which is basically the summons, must be grounded upon a supporting deposition of a qualified expert in industrial odor emission regulations and related enforcement. Pursuant to the ZBA decision of May 11, 2017, the specific condition number 3, compliance with performance standards shall include the following: inspections and/or testing on site while installations are in operation by town retained expert consultants to the extent, type, and/or degree that the town or the town's expert consultants deem necessary. With that said, I am recommending that the town exercise this option and require that stack testing be performed by a qualified expert with experience in industrial odor emissions. Performance Standards Section 4.16 allows for testing at the point of emissions of objectionable elements. And 4.164 states other forms of air pollution. A full odor assessment based upon recognized standards should be performed that will utilize appropriate standard procedures for obtaining samples for all of the specific compounds utilized at the plant to determine the odor thresholds and the toxicity at the point of emissions from all sources at the plant. Once we determine that, we can either say, yes, Aloof is in violation, or maybe they are not the root, and maybe it is another company like Avery Dennison. And this information then, if founded, is now expert and can be used in the prosecution of Aloof to get them to either stop operating or fix the problem. A full odor assessment includes, but is not necessarily limited to, the following: identifying the odor sources by review of the company's processes, emissions from these processes, plant layout. According to the facility schematics and permit application, there are 5 exhaust stacks. 1 exhaust stack is in the reprocessing department, and 4 are in the internal bubble cooling area. Identifying any other potential odor sources as well, again, open vents or other fans that are contributing to maybe release of odors. These sources would be confirmed by the consultant at the initial site visit. Then they would conduct odor sampling. Odor samples would be collected from the facility's emission sources. Stack exhaust criteria will be determined, which includes stack diameter, exhaust temperature, moisture, etc. And these are all utilized to develop the modeling for the measurement of the odors and the toxicity. The samples will then be sent to a lab for odor evaluation, including detectability and intensity. At this point, a minimum of 14 samples should be obtained, but there may be more based upon any other areas of release that are found during the consultant site visit. Sample collection for chemical analysis. An additional sample from the outlets can be collected for the chemical analysis as a screening for volatile organic compounds that potentially cause the odor issues, which are not necessarily toxic, but can also identify toxicity. They will take that and develop a report, and from that we can determine if they are in violation of the levels that are approved, allowed for at the stack release. And that can be addressed. Again, I think it's better to try to find the source of the actual odors than trying to chase it up and down a very busy corridor with there's trucks, school buses. So the town is also in the process of prosecuting Aloof in reference to being in violation of not completing the fix within the ZBA decision's timeframe. So that is in the legal process now, and I believe it's supposed to be heard in January. I think that's it. That covers my update. You have any questions? Good?
Thank you, Jane.
I have a question. Can TRC do that stack testing? Do we know?
Aren't we meeting with them tomorrow?
Yes, we're going to speak with them tomorrow. They did provide an outline. I wanted to make sure that they would be able to do the toxicity element of it as well. They addressed odor, but I think if we're going to be there, we want to also do with the toxic levels. And I think Sandra Bonville's company also can possibly do that. So it might be something we
good.
consider talking to him as well.
Good idea.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. He actually, I have it. I have the edit here from John, which is very helpful. So the next resolution was item number 3, where the town board declares itself, let's see, lead agency, and also declares it there to be a negative as far as any kind of significant environmental impact from this code amendment. Make a motion for this. Do I hear a second? Second. From Divany, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks, guys. So number 4 is the adoption of the law, but first we're going to vote on the amendment to, and if you go down to D, what was B, let's see, John, you were putting a G in here, actually, A, B, or is that a B? Maybe it's a B. Yeah, it's a B, sorry. I'm reading John's handwriting. So there's a new item under section D, procedures and fees. It's lettered B as in boy, and it reads in the following way. So this is proposed. This is page 3 of the overall agenda, and under the law, which is written under item 4, it's at the top of page 3, it's section D. A new item B, which I'll give a copy to the clerk of. It says, a visual depiction and narrative description of the proposed facilities, which ensures, to the extent possible, that the facilities blend into or are otherwise screened by surrounding adjacent structures. So that would be added. Thank you to Chris Dunnigan for making a suggestion in that nature. So I'll make a motion. Well, actually, why don't we have someone else make the motion to add that amendment to the proposed. Make a motion from Paul, second from over here from Jerry. All in favor say aye. Aye. So now on the amended resolution to adopt this local law, I'll take a motion from Dennis, second from Tom Divany. All in favor of adopting this town law as amended, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you for that. So now we're on to number 5, which is, as we discussed before, sort of changing a previous resolution, naming Bobby Sands Way. Dennis, you want to make a motion for this one? I know you spoke about it before.
So moved.
Second from myself. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. And then we have a couple related to our committees. The first one, this is item number 6, is appointing, what's his first name? Ron Garcia to serve the remainder of the term of Jim Andrews, who resigned from the Substance Abuse Committee and whose term expires at the end of December.
Moved.
Make a motion from Tom Divany, second from Jerry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Number 7, same story, only this time with the Housing Authority, the resignation of Robert Tompkins and his replacement through his term, which ends December 31st, 2020, with Joseph Jukic. I'll make a motion for that. Second from Troy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you for that. Number 8 is the release of the performance bond for the club at Pearl River. Do I hear a motion for this from Jerry? From Dennis, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Number 9 is accepting the resignation of Officer Tomeo from the parking enforcement group the town has. I'll make a motion for this. Here, second from Tom Divany. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Number 10, this is approving items for surplus from the Parks Department, discussed last week. I'll make a motion for this. Have a second from Paul Valentine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. And number 11 is awarding the contract for snow plowing of Courtwood Village Senior Housing Complex to the Helmke, right? Yeah, Helmke Industries, the only qualified bidder. Someone like to make a motion for this? Over here. Dennis? Motion?
So moved.
Second from Jerry. All in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Number 12, this is the installation of 2 bus shelters at number 250, Route 340, not 230. Thank you, Esther Baitler, for making that correction, as discussed during workshop. I'll make a motion for this one. Have a second from Paul. All in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Number 13, accepting resignation of Jessica Garrett from the Justice Court. Wish her well in all her endeavors. I'll make a motion for this. Here's second over here from Jerry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I know that she's a fast runner in the Santa 5K, and I think Teresa's happy because she'll have less competition out there for the Employee Cup anyway. Number 14, this is the appointment of Mr. John McGowan, Esquire, as a legal consultant instructor for Orangetown Police Department's Youth Court Program. Who would like to make a motion for this
I'll move
resolution? From Dennis, second over here. From Tiffany, all in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Number 15. Okay, so this is setting a public hearing for a review and amendment of our town code as it pertains to permitting of filming in the town. And so the proposal that I'm making under new business is we set a public hearing for December 19th. Included in the agenda here and in backup, which I've provided to the town board, is a draft of the changes. I've looked at a couple of different towns and the way they do it, and then today, actually, I got some really great information from John Edwards, who's in the process of looking at the West Haverstraw permitting, and there's some nuance to the amount of fees and exactly how they structure their fees that I want to continue to look at and take advice from anybody who has the desire to offer it. But in the meantime, I'd like to set a public hearing so we can get comment and kind of move the question forward for December 19th. I'll make a motion for that. Do I have a second? Second from Valentine. All in favor, say aye. All right, the ayes have it. So we set a public hearing, and please respond with comments. And I'll send out a revision based on what I got from John today. Set public meeting calendar for 2018. I want to thank our clerk, Charlie Madigan, for putting this calendar together. I know Vicki reviewed it. The town board has had a chance to look at it. The effort, of course, as always, is to plan a calendar with the same number of meetings, but it's in the agenda. If you just flip through, it looks like this. It's on page 13. And so we haven't heard back from anybody saying that there was a problem with the calendar. It avoids the holidays, as always, and keeps the number of meetings consistent. So that's where that's at. Do I hear a motion to approve the 2018 calendar?
I'll make a motion.
From Paul Valentine. Do I have a second from over here somewhere? From Troy, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Guys have it. And adopting it, it makes it easier to, because Vicky's already setting up agenda items for next year as we go into the new year. So we need to have the dates. So that takes care of that. Number 17 is from the Highway Department, rejecting a bid for curb and sidewalk construction and going out to rebid on that. Make a motion for this. Have a second over here from Paul. All in favor say aye. Ayes have it. Number 18 from our finance director. Did we lose Jeff? No, we're running pretty late tonight. But we have the vouchers. We'll also have an adjournment. And don't forget, I'm going to make a motion for executive session to talk with our highway superintendent about a matter pertaining to certain individuals in the highway department.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, tonight's audit consists of 3 warrants for a total of $2.3 million. The first warrant had 6 vouchers for $14,000 and was for 207C benefits. The second warrant had 67 vouchers for $348,000 and was for utilities. The third warrant had 433 vouchers for $1.9 million. Items of interest, number 2, Capolino Chevrolet, $30,000 for a sewer truck. 3, Capasso, $48,000 for recycling. Number 4, Chief Equipment Incorporated, $39,000 for highway equipment. Number 7, Entech, $80,000 for sewer I&I work. Number 13, JP Morgan Equipment Finance, $53,000 for the Siemens Energy Performance contract. Number 18, Department of Civil Service, $700,000 for CSEA healthcare benefits. Number 25, the Comptroller, $32,000 for justice fines. And number 27, Tilcon, $425,000 for highway materials. Any questions on the audit?
Not hearing, I make a motion for approval. Second from Dimmy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I know Jeff will have a sheet for us to sign on that. I want to do these adjournments and then make a motion for executive session as discussed. So we have 2 names of town residents who have passed away. The first is Irene Morrison, the sister of our deputy town attorney, Denise Sullivan. And the second is David Stewart, who is a former employee of the town of Orangetown. So in the names of these town residents who have passed away and with our thoughts going out to their families, I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Second from Tom Divney. All in favor say aye. Aye. And also, that was obviously a preemptive, or what's not exactly the word for it, proactive adjournment, because I'm also making a motion for executive session on with our highway superintendent on the topic of a employee discussion and potential changes to employees. I'll hear a second over here from, how about from Dennis? For executive session, all in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Have a safe night.